Welcome to VSB After the Bell. I'm your host, Gianna Chow. VSB, otherwise known as the Vancouver School Board, is located on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Musqueam, Skahumish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. The district is among the most diverse school systems in Canada, with an annual enrollment of just under 50,000 students from kindergarten to grade 12 and adult education students. Welcome back to VSB After the Bell. With Thanksgiving being in October, the season of gratitude is upon us. VSB acknowledges and shares appreciation for the dedication of more than 50 community partners who work to make schools more welcoming, inclusive, safe, and vibrant learning environments. Support ranges from providing essential services such as food programs to arts and extracurricular activities, as well as donations to families in need. Joining us today are representatives from two esteemed organizations, Jillian Shaw, Board of Directors from Vancouver Sun Children's Fund Society, the Adopt a School program, and Selma Ismail, Youth Settlement Counselor from the South Vancouver Neighborhood House. They're here to discuss their invaluable roles in empowering our students and enhancing their education experiences. Welcome, Jillian, and welcome, Selma.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So perhaps to listeners, you're not really part of the school system, so could you please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent?
So my name is Selma Ismail. I'm the Youth Settlement Counselor at an organization called the South Vancouver Neighborhood House. The South Vancouver Neighborhood House is one of 8 neighborhood houses that are located in the Lower Mainland, and there's part of the bigger organization called the Association of Neighborhood Houses of BC. So we have been in South Vancouver since 1977, running programs and providing social services for families that live in South Vancouver. And in 2004, we started our collaboration with the Vancouver School Board, and it's been going well and thriving ever since.
And how about you, Jillian?
Well, my name is Jillian Shaw. I'm on the board of the Vancouver Sun Children's Fund, which is a standalone charity that has been running as long as the Vancouver Sun has been, which in some incarnation or other, and its most recent under this name, it was started in 1981, and we have taken on projects along that time in response to community need, with the overarching goal always to be helping children and youth in our community.
So over 40 years in Vancouver and helping the community out. So how did each of your organizations begin your partnership with VSB? Maybe we'll start with Adopt a School.
Well, at Adopt a School, on the people on the board, because it was run by a newspaper, we were all journalists, and we were sitting around a table just as we're sitting today in this podcast studio, and we were talking about a letter that was written by a teacher at Seymour Elementary, Carrie Gelson. This was in 2011. She wrote a letter, I think that was meant for family and friends, and it just expressed what she was seeing in her classroom, her worries and her frustrations. And she talked about in some classrooms, the kids had everything, or they had a pack that, could help provide the extras, or their parents could fill in. And in her classroom, some of the most basic needs weren't being met. Like, kids were coming to school. This was this time of year, so it's getting cold. It was rainy. Kids were coming to school with holes in their shoes. They had bites from bed bugs. The reality that Carrie saw in her classroom was one that was very different from some of her friends who were teachers. And that we published that as a story in the Vancouver Sun. And as a result, a lot of very generous donors. Our community is a very generous community. And people went straight to Seymour, and they wrote checks, and they brought clothes, and they brought toys. In our newsroom, which was down in downtown Vancouver, our newsroom started to fill up with coats and toys and people saying, we want to help Seymour. So the Vancouver Sun Children's Fund board at the time said, we're going to there's obviously a need here that we haven't recognized, and it's children just down the street from us. We don't have to go to another country to find children who are going hungry. They're right down the street from us. So as a result, that was what launched the Vancouver Sun Children's Fund Adopt a School initiative. But it was all thanks to donors. And Seymour was the first school we helped, and we very quickly found that what was happening at Seymour was not only reflected in other schools and other inner city schools around the province, but also there were children in need in all kinds of areas. Like, as Selma probably knows from her community, you might have people living, with everything, and they, financially very secure, living down the street, or there could be a child in a class who didn't get breakfast, sitting alongside kids who don't suffer that kind of hardship. And so what we've done in the years since we've been running Adopt a School is try to reach these children and youth. And the way we do it is thanks to organizations like the Vancouver School Board, which come to us. The teachers and administrators and staff come to us and tell us what's happening and what they need, and we try to help.
Well, speaking of the supports that you provide, could you let listeners know, what does the Adopt a School program provide to VSB students?
Our top of our pillars, we have 4 pillars, and the top of that is food and basic necessities. Because if kids are hungry, they can't learn. We also recognize this shouldn't be the job for teachers and principals. They shouldn't have, they're there to teach kids. But if kids have all these issues, like they're coming to school cold and wet, they don't have enough to eat, that impedes their learning. So that is a top priority for us. And we prioritize those applications, and they are the lion's share of our applications by a long shot. But we also recognize other needs, like trying to level the playing field. So we do things like mentorship, sports, technology, and literacy, and try to step in when we can. And again, this is through the generosity of donors. Sometimes we can do things like, we are involved in a project right now with the Vancouver School Board, a technology project that was launched by one of our donors who came to us and said, I would like to, I recognize that there's a need for technology in the schools, and there's not enough money in budgets to meet it, and I would like to do something about that. So to date, they've raised, and this is through a single donor, and their friends, they've raised close to $500,000.
Wow.
That is going to put technology into Vancouver schools.
Ever since COVID occurred, the need for technology definitely seems more apparent. We rely not only on our mobile phones, but our computers, and it's the way of life in the future. And as we set up these students for success and they go into their adulthood, they need to learn how to use these tools. And now turning to the South Vancouver Neighborhood House, how has your organization been collaborating with VSB?
So one of the most important things for preteens and youth as they get older and develop is the importance of having after-school activities. So these activities are meant for them to form social connections, to spend time in a meaningful way, to develop leadership skills, and for them to really thrive outside of their school setting and during their lunch period. So we run a variety of different programs in the schools and also after school and on the weekend. So we run preteen after school programs that are run by youth programmers who are staff at the neighborhood house, but are also supported by youth volunteers who come from neighboring high schools to act as mentors to these preteens, and also for them to develop leadership skills, patience, understanding how to work with other people, collaboration, and things like that. We also have gender equity programs and newcomer youth support programs and sustainability programs. And these take place both on the VSB school sites after school, and they also take place at our neighborhood house, which is located on 49th Avenue and Victoria Drive. We also have cross referrals from VSB for SVH. So we also have programs that take place on the weekend. We really want to make sure that these programs are accessible for our families and our youth and our preteens. So we try to make them as equitable as possible. And that means we have it after school. We have it also on the weekend. That way we have the largest number of youth and preteens that are able to join as possible. We also divide our programs based on demographic. So understanding that newcomer youth have specific needs when it comes to accessing supports. So we have specialized programs for newcomer youth and then as well as for preteens.
Yeah, I know that neighborhood houses are definitely a staple in several different communities throughout Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, really. So those programs are invaluable to parents, especially working parents, when they're not able to pick up their children at 3 o'clock or before school, and they need to get to work at 8 o'clock and school starts at 9 o'clock. So having that buffer time, it makes a huge difference for parents.
Sure. And just like a little bit of my personal experience with the neighborhood house, I'm what they call like a neighborhood house baby. That's like a new term apparently, which basically means that I have been accessing neighborhood house resources ever since I was in high school. I was a newcomer to Canada when I came in grade 8. And I went to the neighborhood house because mainly I just wanted to make some friends, and my mom kind of like pushed me a little bit to join programs after school. And because there were other newcomer youth that were present in the programs, I felt like some kind of connection, even though we all come from different places, but just the idea of like settling into a new country, what that means, how different everybody was from one another, but that difference was like a commonality between all of us. And I really thrived in the neighborhood house and the setting and the supports that were there. My father accessed the neighborhood house to get employment support when he was looking for a job. My younger brother joined preteen programs. My sister was a volunteer there. So I accessed the neighborhood house all throughout my high school years. And then I graduated, and then I went to university, and then I saw that there was a job opening during my third year of university, and then I applied for it. It was just like a part-time job running a program for newcomer youth to like learn how to cook. And then through that part-time job, I was able to get a full-time job at the neighborhood house. So it's kind of a full circle moment where the leadership skills and kind of like the confidence that I've gained through volunteering and being part of the neighborhood house, feeling like there is an actual true community there, and being able to be in that place where now I am facilitating these programs, I'm advocating for newcomer youth. It's a very surreal moment. And even though I've been in this position for 2 years, I still always feel like, oh, this is a very interesting space to be. And I'm very grateful for the neighborhood house. And then that's kind of the experience that I hope that other youth who access these services feel, that like confidence, that sense of being part of something larger and contributing to their community, whether they've been living in that community all of their life or they just got here. But the neighborhood house is just a safe space for everybody to just feel involved, to access services that they need, the services that they want, and just to be there for community.
That really warms my heart to like hear about this full circle moment. And a neighborhood house is more than just somewhere that you drop off your child or a program. You know, it's you built your community, you found your community. It was so much more. You found your friends, your family used the services there, and now you're working there. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, first, I love that story as well. And it's particularly, it just reminds me, and even having Selma and I having a conversation before we sat down for this podcast and sharing thoughts about what we do, and also even identifying ways that we could help. And it just makes me realize every day that we're part of a community and all kind of pulling in the same direction. And it takes a lot to really affect some change.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that story because you're a story of affecting that change yourself.
And you feel like there, because in this world today, there's a lot of tragic news, and this is really warming to hear that, a neighborhood house baby has thrived.
Yeah. And through some of, we don't actually go out and, make sandwiches and serve breakfast ourselves. So we rely on, as we rely on the school board, we also rely on, there's some Vancouver schools where the local neighborhood house is providing the meal, and we provide the funding for that. So it all is intertwined. You don't have to look very deep to see how these roots go, and they're intertwined.
So with these variety of services, how do you both identify what areas of needs that students require, and how do you support that?
For Vancouver, since we started in 2011 with Adopt a School, we've raised more than $12 million, I think now that has gone to schools throughout the province. But our focus is on British Columbia schools. Of that, a little over $3.25 million has gone to Vancouver schools. And that only represents a bit of a fraction of what actually goes into schools from what we do, because just as in the early days with Seymour, people walked up to the front desk and handed, a check over to help because they read it in the newspaper, they're still doing that. And I met a donor the other day who is our donor and has come, to come to us, but also I said, how did you come to Adopt a School, or what was your interest in what we're doing? And he said, since I read that story in the first story, Carrie Gilson's story at Seymour School, we've been helping that school. So there are all kinds of connections that we don't even know about. So it goes beyond money. Like we send money, we take applications, and we send money to help feed kids, clothe them, fund field trips for kids who otherwise wouldn't be allowed to go, or all these kinds of things. But really, that is only a fraction. We have food companies that deliver, breakfast sandwiches. We have companies that deliver fresh fruit and vegetables, and that doesn't show on our balance sheet, but it's all contributing to our goal. And they're one of the ways the only way really that we tell the story of what we're doing is through stories in the newspaper. So donors step forward when they read, and often we find people don't realize that maybe there are children in their own neighborhood that need help. And I think as journalists, we feel a responsibility to shed light on those stories, just as we learned that there were children in our neighborhoods that needed help. We're trying to let people know, because once they know, people are very generous and step forward. So that and the way you did ask about how we take applications, and the applications come from. We learn about the needs from everybody, from assistants in the classroom, teachers, principals, administrators, people who are working with kids. We rely on them to tell us about the need. And we also go and visit the schools. So we don't sort of sit back in an office. We don't even have an office. But if we did, we wouldn't be sitting in it. We go out to the schools. We go out to the community centers. We go talk to the people who are actually delivering these services and seeing firsthand what the need is. And we meet them, and we meet a lot of the people we're helping, and that helps to inform our, and also helps to encourage us at times of the year like now, when we are facing $2 million in applications that we have more than 150 applications that have come across our desk just this fall. And that's quite daunting, because we're not a big charity. We don't have a marketing department. We don't have any overhead, actually. Our little overhead is actually paid through an endowment that very generous early donors had set up. And so that covers our costs, so that 100% of every donation that comes in goes to help children and youth.
Well, it's there's a lot of good people in the community, And the Vancouver Sun has a far reach. It's been a staple in Vancouver. It's been here for decades, for a very long time. And whenever we see a story in the Sun, it's a credible source, right? It's you have the noise of fake news, alternative news these days, and Vancouver Sun is still very much seen as the North Star for journalism. So, you have this great platform and you're able to reach a mass audience and then find the good people in the community and give back to students in need at the Vancouver School Board. So very, very grateful for that. How about you, Salma? How do you find the areas of student needs that you need to support?
So there's a bunch of different ways where we try to do a needs assessment to see like what the preteens and the youth really need at this moment, because the trends change over time and the needs change frequently. So we try as much as we can to be able to address them. So one of the main ways that we do that is knowledge exchange through the settlement workers that work in the schools to support youth and their families, the community school team coordinators, school principals, and ELL department heads. Speaking specifically for newcomer youth, for example, we have something called a learning club for youth to get access to homework support after school with university volunteers or college level volunteers. So it's kind of like a mutual benefit where the youth get homework support and then the volunteers gain that experience working with youth. And for example, when we see that there is an influx of immigrants or newcomers from certain parts of the world that speak a particular language, it's helpful to know that because then we can try to find volunteers who are able to speak that language as well to be able to support them on a more meaningful level. So that's something that we found to be very helpful. We also have youth surveys, so learning directly from the youth what kind of services they're looking for, what kind of volunteer opportunities they're craving, what things they really want to do or things that they need in order to like thrive during their high school time. And then with newcomer youth in particular, I think one of the most important factors to determine their need is building trust and having kind of like a trustworthy relationship with them, because sometimes it takes time to open up and to really understand what the needs are. So you just want to know, or you want to tell them that you are here and you're here to support. And then with time, hopefully you get to build that trust and that relationship. And then through that, you're able to truly understand the things that they're going through and how you're able to support. But that, of course, takes some time and some patience from both sides. So that's why we try to have our programs in the school to make them, or to go to their safe space and see where they're at in order to support them. And then finally, we also have parents that express what kind of things that they think that their youth would benefit from in the after-school program. So like what kind of leadership opportunities. If I have had parents in the past where they tell me like, my youth is very shy and very introverted, so can you find ways to like support them kind of get out of their shell a little bit, embrace their strengths and things like that. So that's also very helpful when having different services. And I think when you're working through like a diversity and inclusion framework, we have to like acknowledge that everybody is different and they take their feedback different, and the services that we have to, we try our best to cater it to the specific needs of each youth and preteen. And that's kind of like the philosophy that we like to go by. And yeah.
Lots of opportunities to find the areas of support. I think, if you're already in a neighborhood house, then you have the contacts to your program leader or those that are in the neighborhood, staff of the neighborhood house. But for those who perhaps are not there yet, they can talk to their principal who can connect them to the right neighborhood house. I know that sometimes there's almost a fear of talking to the principal because it's only when you get in trouble. But we're here to really encourage parents to keep your principal, to keep your classroom teacher in the loop proactively. So it really takes a village to support these children, and it's both at the home life and also at the school life. So as we heard, lots of services available. So where can parents, where can students find these services? And following up on that question, how do you choose which schools receive these supports?
So For your first question, we have a building, we have a location. It's on Victoria Drive and 49th Avenue. So you can walk in. We have our opening hours from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We also have services offered on Saturdays, but it's more limited services from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you can go to the South Vancouver Neighborhood House website, and they have all of the contact information for the staff. If you don't really know what kind of services and you want to learn more, you can also call the front desk. We have amazing receptionists that are able to guide you through the different programs and services that we have and who to call. And in terms of how we choose, each neighborhood house has a different catchment. So for South Vancouver, for the high schools at least, it is Killarney Secondary School, John Oliver Secondary School, and David Thompson Secondary School, as well as the accompanying elementary schools. And so the South Vancouver Neighborhood House staff and the community schools team staff kind of determine what are the needs for each school and what programs would be of benefit for those schools. And based on that, we have our services there or offsite at our location. And then the reason why we have certain catchments is that we don't want to overlap services. So there's excess services that are not being utilized. So we try our best to just make sure that the services that we have are accessible to everybody.
But you cover all of Vancouver with your various...
with the different neighborhood houses.
With 8 of them, as you mentioned earlier. You also said community schools team. Mm-hmm. And for families who are not aware, these are district staff members who are resource staff. They're stationed in schools, particularly secondary schools. And then each secondary school, they have dedicated feeder schools or elementary schools. And so you really work directly with VSB staff and the neighborhood house together to determine the supports that are needed. And how about Adopt a School? Because really it's not as, there's no storefront. You guys are really working behind the scenes. So where are you, or where can we find your services, and how do you choose where to provide those supports?
Well, you can find us online at vansonkidsfund.ca. And for there are 2 parts to what we do. For donors, there's information, a lot of, if you want to find out what schools in your neighborhood or what's going on, we keep our stories run in the Vancouver Sun, and they're archived on our site. And then for people who are looking for help, we encourage applications, and we encourage it with a lot of faith that we're going to be able to meet the need. For kids going hungry, we haven't had to, say we can't do that. So we encourage applications, and they come from all levels. It could be a teacher like a Carrie Gelson working in the classroom and saying, I could use some winter coats, or I could use some boots, or we need some money for snacks. What we tell people is we're not gatekeepers. You come to us and we'll do the best we can. It's interesting because a teacher or a principal will have great need in schools where there is no meal program. And they'll name some figure that we're going to feed kids breakfast for $2,000 for the year. And I know from what we do, I don't think that's quite enough to do what you want to do. And they say, well, we don't want to take away from others. That breaks my heart. Even in areas of great need, people are thinking of other people. So we try to deliver this message of don't self-select. And we also, by working together, like with the Vancouver School Board, we can put our heads together and make, a little bit of money go a long way.
Well, you heard it right here. And anyone can apply as long as they log online.
You have to be, this is a little bit of, CRA talk, but they have to be qualified donees. So if you decide that, I decide to start cooking out of my kitchen and making sandwiches, I'm not a qualified donee. We're not in the business, as I said, of making breakfast, making lunch, or delivering food. We need to rely on our community partners. So, for instance, the VSB would be the qualified donee that says, yes, we're going to take this money and it's going to provide breakfast for so many kids, or it's going to provide lunch. And the same with a neighborhood house. As I mentioned, there's a neighborhood house that is making breakfast for kids in a Vancouver school. And we're among the funders, I think the chief funder in that.
So, Jillian, you mentioned donees. To clarify, are you speaking about nonprofit organizations or credible organizations who can make an application to the Vancouver Sun Children's Society?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't disperse funds to individuals. We don't take applications from individuals. The applications come from, when we say qualified donees, there's under the Canada Revenue, under Canada Revenue, there are nonprofits and charities that are qualified. And for instance, the Vancouver School Board, all school boards are qualified donees, the Association of Neighborhood Houses, and a number of other organizations. So we don't give the money directly to the families or children we're helping. We rely on the schools and the organizations that are helping them to make those applications and to manage the services and deliver the services that we're funding.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So we know that sometimes there can be stigma when it comes to asking for additional help, especially in communities where maybe it's seen as you're in the midst of an affluent community and you never know what the circumstances is. Maybe this family just lost their job and they're still driving a nice car, but the circumstances have changed extremely for them. So there is this stigma when it comes to asking for help. How do you address that in your organization?
So I think it's really hard to completely eliminate stigma, but we try to normalize asking for help and seeking support. And for example, we have a program called Care and Share, which is a dignified way for families to get access to donated clothing items, home appliances, things like that. It's similar to if you were to go to a store, you kind of look around and see the things that would be beneficial for you and your family to access without having it's kind of like a shopping experience. So we tried to find unique program delivery ways in order to destigmatize access to support and services. For our newcomer populations in particular, we have amazing settlement staff that are able to speak a variety of different languages. So for South Van, we have settlement workers that can speak in Arabic, Punjabi, Hindi, Bangla, Farsi and Dari, Mandarin, Cantonese, Tagalog, Ukrainian, and Russian and Korean. So that way, our community members have an opportunity to speak more candidly and openly if they prefer to speak in their native language to feel more heard. And also delivering these programs with certain languages is also beneficial for them to see and learn about social services and accessing these resources. Many newcomer families come from countries where social services either don't exist or they're meant for people living in extreme poverty. And they always have that mindset of, I don't really need it. There's someone else that might need it more. So we have a lot of that mentality, even amongst our youth, which is a very beautiful sentiment to have. But we also want to encourage them that if this is something that you need, if this will make your life easier, this is a resource for you to use and it's meant for you. And it comes back to building that relationship and building trust between you as a community partner to these youth. And that's why working with the VSB staff is also really important because the VSB staff are trusted people for a lot of the families. So by bridging that gap between community service versus school service, we're able to support more families because it comes from someone that they trust.
Yeah, you're so right about services being offered, social services being offered in other countries. I'm first generation immigrant here. And I remember when my mom was raising me, she's a single parent and she didn't accept any help. One, there was a language barrier. So having those different services being able to communicate with someone in their mother tongue really helps, makes them feel safe. But also there was kind of this sense of pride of, if I take any government, quote unquote, government services, so that could be from a nonprofit, it's seen as I'm not capable enough, right? So letting listeners know that if you need help, like, these services are here to help you. It doesn't, there's no stigma to it. It's really here to set you up for success as you are in a new foreign country, and there are different rules and regulations and social environment and the way we do things. So these initiatives undoubtedly demonstrate the commitment of our community partners to fostering a nurturing environment for our students. Before we conclude, how can community members get involved and support the valuable work that your organizations are doing?
So for the South Vancouver Neighborhood House, we have a lot of different volunteer opportunities, whether it be for youth or adults. So in terms of adults, we have a lot of programs where we need kind of like mentorship and support, helping with school subjects. We have a lot of community events that requires a lot of like manpower and people to be there to support. We also have the Care and Share program, which I mentioned earlier. We take donations of clothing in good condition, home appliances in good condition, toys in good condition, anything that you yourself would use but no longer need. We accept those. You can just drop them off at the neighborhood house or at Killarney Community Center on Thursdays, every other Thursday. But all of that information is found on the South Vancouver website. And I think those are the main ways. You can also donate as well and become a member just to keep updated of the different programs and services that we have, upcoming community events. We have more presence in social media now. So if you're on Facebook or on Instagram, we have different social medias for the staff members that share the programs that we have and volunteer opportunities that are available.
That's good to know that you can just drop it off to either the neighborhood house or the Killarney Community Center, especially if you guys have 8 neighborhood houses. I know with the weather changing, I just changed over my closet and kind of edited it and found a lot of clothes that I don't need that's barely used. So that's a good resource to know. And how about for you, Jillian?
Well, at the Children's Fund for Adopt a School, as I mentioned, we're facing more than $2 million in requests this year. And every year, we just don't know how it's going to turn out. And so, of course, we can't help these children and youth without the donations. We have fundraiser pages set up. So if you go to vansonkidsfund.ca, and it's just as it sounds, you can find the stories about different schools, but also find about different applications. And a couple of things that we do that set us apart, we, as I said, 100% of the donation goes to help children and youth. So if you send us $100, $100 goes to children and youth, whether it's in a meal program or it's, whatever it's funding. And the other thing, which we find has really resonated with donors, and it resonated with us, probably starting with Seymour School, that donors can choose their school. They can choose a particular project. And what we've had is people come to us and say, well, I live in this neighborhood. In fact, there was an after-school group of the Homework Club at Britannia. When we started, they were in danger of going under because they didn't have, at the time, it was like $5,000 or $10,000 to sustain them. It was looks like a small amount of money, but it was the difference between keeping the doors open and closing them. We had somebody who had moved into that neighborhood, read the story, called us and said, I would like to keep that neighborhood. And she wrote a check, delivered it, and it kept going. And now that Britannia Homework Club is not only surviving, but thriving and doing a little bit of the same as Selma talked about with what she's doing, where students there are getting tutoring support from students who have graduated. So it sometimes just takes a little somebody priming the pump, like a donor coming forward. And we have other donors say, I live, I went to such and such a school and I would like to help there. We have donors. Like one of the things we found is when we started this, that there was a lot of money, well, not a lot of money, but children in elementary schools were being fed. And you've probably seen this, but once you go to high school, you kind of drop off a cliff. It's like,
well, you have to pay for the cafeteria.
They're
food,
still
right?
hungry,
Yeah.
but they don't have any more money and often they're trying to juggle jobs or look up after other family members. So we've had really unique situations where like a group of students from student council came to us and said, we have volunteers, we'll serve a breakfast, can you pay for all the food? And so we do that, and that help comes in many different ways, and our donors respond to that. So get in touch with us. We're happy to talk about it.
I will also take this opportunity to mention that VSB also accepts donations directly. We have a Donate Now button on our website, vsb.bc.ca, and there are several ways to contribute either through technology or meals. We also have anti-racism initiatives that we accept donations for. Definitely lots of need to go around in the community, but also we are aware there's a lot of good people out there and willing and wanting to make a difference. Thank you both for sharing your insights and your initiatives with us. We truly appreciate the impactful work that you are doing to uplift the school communities. To our listeners, please consider reaching out to these organizations to explore how you can contribute to the growth and well-being of our students. Thank you, everyone. We have a reoccurring segment on the show called Matter of the Month, where we talk about hot topics in the district. For this month, we're delving into an important and sometimes controversial subject, BC's Foundational Skills Assessment. I speak with Helen McGregor, VSB Superintendent, about what is it, why is it important, and what are some common misconceptions about it. Join us as we aim to demystify the FSA and shed light on its significance for students, parents, and educators. Welcome, Helen, and thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Gianna.
So first off, let's understand what is the Foundation Skills Assessment, or otherwise known as FSA.
In British Columbia, the FSA is an annual provincial-wide assessment. So all students in grades 4 and 7 write it, and it looks at their academic skills. And it covers areas such as reading, writing, and numeracy. And the primary objective of the assessment is to provide a snapshot of how well students are mastering foundational skills, assisting educators in tailoring teaching methods and curriculum to meet students' needs effectively. So these assessments are completed as part of a student's regular classroom learning, right in their classroom. And the FSAs have 30 literacy questions and 30 numeracy questions, and also 2 self-reflection questions. So the booklet that students will see will have a choice of literacy themes. They have 3 literacy written response questions and 3 numeracy written response questions, and at the end, a self-reflection question.
Okay, so really at the end of the day, this is a test that all grades 4 and grade 7s in the province of BC take to see if they are at the level of reading, writing, and numeracy. If this assessment is a tool used to help us identify the needs of each student, then why has it been a topic of debate in educational circles? I've heard many advocates questioning its efficacy.
Well, there are misconceptions about the FSA, and a big one is that it's used solely to rank schools and students. And in reality, the FSA serves as a tool for educators to identify the strengths and weaknesses in the education system and implement necessary changes to enhance the learning experience. But more importantly, the results of the FSA can provide really valuable insights for families Families will receive individual student results and reports. And those reports are shared both with the family, the principal, and the classroom teacher. And those reports give a real comprehensive understanding about a student's progress in literacy, reading, writing, and numeracy, and areas that require additional support. So by understanding the purpose of the FSA and its role in shaping educational practices, families can really actively engage with their school about their own child's learning journey and working alongside the school to foster academic growth and development.
Okay, yeah, because I have heard from several even media outlets that have said year after year FSAs are used to rank schools, and many independent schools use it to showcase how great their school is to attract more students. But really, the FSA is a benefit for parents, for students, for families to understand where their child is and if extra supports are needed. It sounds like a separate report is sent to the families and to the school, so you can see exactly where you are. So it's more about helping the student rather about the school, which seems to have spun into a different narrative. Is that right?
Absolutely. It is really about how is that individual student doing. And we use that in addition to other information at the school level and the classroom level to support the learning.
But there are also report cards, and students have them now 3 times a year. So wouldn't that cover the assessment? Shouldn't that be good enough? That's what the report card is for. Why this additional test that only happens in grade 4 and 7?
So I want to say that the FSA is just one of many tools that are used to assess how a student is doing and their performance. And it doesn't represent the whole complete educational journey of a student. And noting it's only in grade 4 and 7. So obviously report cards happen in every grade. And teachers use many forms of assessment, including classroom-based evaluations, ongoing feedback, to evaluate how a student is progressing in relation to the curriculum. So it's one important tool in collaboration with report cards and other assessments.
Okay, so it's an additional tool that families can use. In late September, you sent an email to all families in the Vancouver School Board to children who are taking their FSA, or rather, I should say to families of children who are taking the FSA. Your letter encouraged them to take it. And families then receive contradictory information about FSA from their teachers, where the teachers union discouraged participation. This was really confusing for parents, and we definitely heard from them, and they reached out to us. Why is there this contradicting message? And this seems to happen every year. Why is that the case? We tell families that they need to talk to their teachers, but it's their teachers who are telling us that they shouldn't take it. What should parents really believe here?
So I sent a letter for this very reason, to be clear about what the FSA is and the purpose. So all students in grade 4 and 7 participate in the FSA. The FSA is not an opt-in or opt-out exercise. A family can reach to a principal and ask or have a conversation about an exemption to writing, but that's made in collaboration with principals and vice principals in very few circumstances. And unfortunately, in the past, the assessments have been politicized, and that's what I talked about in the letter to families. And as a result, there are confusing and contradictory details about them. This is not unique to Vancouver. This is a provincial circumstance. And there is a protocol agreement between the BC Teachers Federation and the BC Public Schools Employer Association about sharing information with student families. And that's why teachers share their own view about the FSA. But I want to be very clear. FSAs are not a high-stakes assessment. They're not meant to be used to rank students, teachers, or schools. It's about learning. And as a superintendent, I am deeply committed to ensuring we do everything we can to improve learning outcomes for all students across Vancouver. These tests are standardized provincial-wide, and they provide very valuable information about how students are doing in Vancouver schools, and important information for parents to know how their students are doing. And as I talked about before, individual classroom teachers can use assessment results as one measure of how their students are doing and where they might need some more support. So as a school district, FSA results are used to help make evidence-informed decisions about where we need to focus resources and supports to enhance student learning. And that is the real important reason as to why I made that communication out to all families this year.
So what you're saying here is even though there is contradictory information between us and the Teachers Federation, as an educator, you strongly believe in the FSA and that it is used as a tool to help students and their families and guide them in their learning journey.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Helen, for being here today to explain what the FSA is and why it's essential to recognize that it plays a pivotal role in enhancing the education system. By promoting a comprehensive understanding of its purpose and dispelling common misconceptions, I really do believe that we can work towards leveraging the FSA to its full potential and ultimately fostering a more effective and inclusive learning environment for all students. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you.
Special thanks to music teacher Mr. Bonnell and Nightingale Elementary students for the original theme song. Episodes will be released monthly. Tune in at the end of the month and don't forget to subscribe to VSB After the Bell on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
After the bell with the VSB.